Hi guys, MrRoflWaffles here. I think it's no secret that in the video game industry, leaks have become super duper common, and especially so with big Goliath games like Call of Duty, for instance. Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War is no exception. There's a bunch of stuff that has leaked for this game, but it's a little different this year. You see, over the years, with zombies, there have been massive leaks, like entire cutscenes coming out early and things like that, which has been really ridiculous, and also smaller things like one little texture for a character found in the files maybe a month before a map came out or something like that, but without any way of actually seeing it, and it was just like letting you know that that character was going to be there, like much smaller things. There's been features that have been planned long in advance that have then not even materialized. There have been things where the leak has said that you've got to do one thing in the game to do an Easter egg, and then you find out later on that it's actually been removed from the game, like it never got to ship, and so that's just an outdated piece of code. There's just all sorts of stuff that has ended up leaked over the years in one capacity or another, and it's interesting because there's actually a community that I think has grown to really focus on the leaks and to prioritize those over pretty much everything else in the game. Like, leaks are the most exciting part of the game experience to them, and so as you can imagine, that means that the code in COD gets combed through even more carefully than you might expect in another similarly large title. Like, people just love getting that info early. Now, what's been interesting this year is that compared to my experience of previous years of Call of Duty releases, and this is as a YouTuber doing this full time, I've been doing it a long time now, I feel like the leaks this year have been kind of abstract and just less in depth than I actually expected them to be. I thought this year we were going to get a stupid number of leaks for this game, but actually it's been reasonably contained from what I've seen so far in the main public circles. I'm sure that in smaller circles there are leaks going around and all that sort of stuff, but I'm talking about like the Charlie Intel news, the kind of major headlines, things that get reported on in a really big way. It's felt like it's been a bit quieter this year from my perspective. And interestingly, this year I feel like there have been more leaks that have been kind of wrong than I'm used to seeing as well. Like, for a long time, people would tweet me and say it's leaked that it's going to be Transit remastered on disc. And as far as we can tell, that's not actually correct. Transit might be coming later down the line, but it appears to actually just be Nacht on Toten here. So maybe there was some kind of miscommunication in the leak pipeline. I don't know how these things work, but there have been things like that that people thought were going to be the case, and then actually we've kind of had to course correct and change our expectations because of the fact that they were a little bit off. And all of this has got me thinking, and by the way, we'll be talking about some leaked stuff in a minute, but for now it's spoiler free, don't worry, okay? I, in the past, have always had a stance that leaks was something I wanted to avoid as best as I possibly could, because for me, organically experiencing all this stuff in the game was what the devs wanted and would give me the most enjoyable experience. I wanted to be surprised when I jumped into the Origins cutscene for the first time and watched that when we completed it with my team back in 2013, and despite the fact that it leaked, I made sure not to watch that in order to get the authentic experience as the devs intended. And there have been countless other examples of it over the years as well, where I've just felt like I would rather try and avoid leaked content where possible if I have the chance. Obviously, if Treyarch was sitting me down and saying, hey Milo, do you want to watch a trailer or something at like a Der Eisendrache event, I'd be like, okay, yeah, let's do it. But that would be because that's the devs' intention. Like, I was trying to go with basically what Treyarch and Activision were putting out into the world. But nowadays, I look out at the way the kind of video game industry treats these sorts of things, and I'm like, to be honest, maybe it's a fool's errand. Like, maybe actually, like, committing to avoiding leaks is just gonna mean that I basically handicap myself when I'm trying to do my job, and it's something that I'm not gonna be able to avoid anyway because they're everywhere these days. They spread like wildfire. It's so easy to get leaked info, it feels like. Like, it feels like everyone's got a source, and so maybe it's futile to expect to be able to kind of divert myself away from all of that content, because I've got to read my Twitter feed, I've got to read my emails, I've got to read all X, Y, and Z, and that's where a lot of this stuff surfaces, so it's a tricky one. Now, I'd be curious if you could leave your thoughts on this in the comments down below, because in the past, I've been very public about the fact that I've wanted to avoid leaks for myself. If you want leaks for yourself, that's fine, but I just wanted people to be conscientious cautious about the way that they spread them. But this year, I'm sort of thinking maybe it's time for me to be just a little bit more relaxed about it in terms of my own personal experience. Obviously, I'm still going to give spoiler warnings and blah, 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 but maybe I can just kind of chill. Like, I'm not going to be planning to, like, leak things myself. That's not my intention at all here. I'm just thinking that maybe when bits and pieces happen, I can feel a little less restricted in even looking at that material because, again, it's, like, sort of necessary for me to be able to do my job as effectively as I can. Anyway, there always have been certain exceptions to this in the past where I've wanted to avoid leaks, but certain things are 100% just going to be everywhere. Things like trophies, achievements, all of that stuff always leaks before the map comes out. There's always an argument to be made that, like, oh, if the game comes out 13 hours earlier in Australia, then it's leaks if you look at that stuff before you have it on your console. Like, I've always been like, well, no, at that point the game's just out. And I definitely haven't seen that as like a leak in the past in the same way. But yeah, there have been bits and pieces that I have been totally cool with, and we're going to be talking about some of those in this video now. So if you don't want any information about Cold War Zombies at all, then now is the time to click off. But if you are willing to hear some of these things that have come out and have been on Charlie Intel and stuff like that in the last few days, then stick around. Let's get into the details. The first thing to quickly touch on is the like plasma gun wonder weapon in the map, okay? The name for this gun is the Decompressive Isotopic Estrangement Machine. And people have speculated for a long time about whether this is going to be part of the ray gun family, whether this is an entirely new thing or what, because we know that the ray gun is in the map, and as I'm sure you'll remember, the ray gun is part of an ether family of weapons. It's got design kind of history and influence and pedigree, or whatever you want to call it, from folks like Dr. Maxis and Dr. Richtofen and Dr. Porter and things like that as well. And so with the ray gun returning, it was like, okay, that's an interesting, weird link back to the old universe that we were previously in and now we're apparently not in anymore, but there are sort of still callbacks to it, and there are sort of characters that made it out of that universe into this one. But this new weapon was a kind of mystery, but now we know that as far as we can tell, it's actually a separate entity entirely, and that also suggests to me that this is going to be unique to this map. We're actually freeing the weapon in the map itself, and I think that what's probably going to happen is it's going to be in some kind of containment facility or field or some kind of area that we basically have to break into as if we were trying to secure some kind of radioactive device or something, and that's why we're freeing it, because it's essentially been kept under lock and key just to be sure that when this map, this entire kind of research facility, the Project End Station got shut down, it didn't end up falling into the wrong hands or anything like that. That was sort of just a side point though. Let's talk about the Easter egg. Now, Activision, if you're watching this, you can take a deep breath, just breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth. It's going to be okay, all right? I'm not leaking Easter egg steps here. I'm not going above and beyond the Call of Duty and, like, publishing the end cutscene 3 weeks before the game comes out. No, sir. No, madam. That's not what's going on, okay? This is purely speculation through what Charlie Intel have already been talking about and what I've intuited from the trailer, etc., okay? So, deep breaths, folks. The Easter egg itself, as far as I understand right now, is going to be related to essentially closing the rift that caused this zombie outbreak in the first place. There's a really important story point here, which I think we've all sort of known was coming, that we would need to address, but that we've been waiting for more information on before we've really crafted our like elaborate theories on. I think this is a good time to get into it though a little bit. So that previous universe of all the old ether stuff that we did has to connect and kind of plug into this universe in some way. It just would not make sense for things like the Perks to still be around if the universes weren't connected. I mean, Samantha and Eddie could literally have come here and told them how to make those damn things, but there may be some other kind of outlet or kind of leak almost. We're talking about leaks and I'm talking about leaks. A leak from that previous universe that has been seeping into this one and seeding it, if you will, with certain key aspects of zombies that make this whole game mode tick. The rift that we are going to be closing in the map is, I think, going to be key to that entire discussion. I think that the reason that rift needs to be closed is because it's basically an anomaly, a tear in time and space and what have you, where we are getting excess material from that previous entire multiverse that is making its way into this new universe now, and our characters are going to be Project Requiem Strike Team going in to shut that down as soon as possible to preserve the balance of this universe that we're currently inhabiting and ensure that nothing like that other multiverse wibbly wobbly timey wimey awfulness ever happens again. It's almost like the Ether storyline never did actually go away. It didn't get shelved. It didn't get deleted. It's not been retconned. This isn't a separate story. It's not something we can think about in that light, because my interpretation right now is that it's more like just a layer that is still there and that is still a risk at any time of being pulled from and being broken into. But as long as our Requiem strike team can stay on top of things, we should be able to clamp down any holes between those two separate multiverses and make sure that we stay safe. It's worth mentioning here that there was also reference in some leaked achievements to escaping from the deep dark wild as this kind of mystery Chivo that we didn't know what it was related to, and that could be related to D-Machine as well. I actually don't know on that one at all. That could be D-Machine, it could be Dead Ops Arcade 3, because there's other Chivos for Dead Ops Arcade 3. There's one, for example, which is for defeating the Mummerback, which is the new iteration of the Cosmic Silverback, and saving our dear friend, so that's probably beating Dead Ops Arcade 3, but this survive the wild, escaping from the deep dark wild thing could be something in the middle of the game of Dead Ops Arcade 3, or that could, in theory, be related to D-Machine. You could be escaping the forest, and that's what that refers to. It's basically just talking about an exfil. I figured that would be worth mentioning real quick. We know that we can exfil from the map at pretty much any time. It'll spawn in massive waves of zombies, and in a similar way to how in the Onslaught mode, you're going to get more and more waves of zombies with more and more mini-bosses and things like that. Here, we're going to get like a massive wave with bunches of mini-bosses coming through. It's going to be really hectic while you try and get to the chopper. And so maybe that's what this is talking about. It doesn't mention D-Machine or zombies though, and as such, it is more likely to be Dead Ops Arcade or something else entirely. It's also worth talking perks here. We've known for a while that there wouldn't be a perk limit anymore, or at least I'm pretty sure that that's the case, and that's been really exciting. And we've also known that we could upgrade perks now. There was some kind of perk upgrade system, but we haven't known the scope of it. And I've been saying, man, I would love like a perk skill tree. That would be amazing if we could get like a really fleshed out list of options that we could sort of add on as different attributes to our perks. I would love that so much, but it's just been unclear which direction Treyarch we're going to take things in. We now know that we're going to be able to upgrade perks to a tier 3. So this isn't just Jug and then you add on one single attribute like a PhD type thing to prevent explosive damage or reduce explosive damage. It's not just a pro perk, essentially. There are more levels to it than that, and this all actually combines with the fact that there's an achievement in the game called Socket to Me, which is for upgrading a skill in zombies, and it doesn't say in D-Machine, it says in zombies. And as such, what I think is going on here is that we are getting persistent perk upgrades where in the menu of the game, you're going to be able to use a currency of some kind, like maybe you're going to use like 115 rocks or something to upgrade your Juggernog, and then in the Juggernog upgrade screen, you'll see a list of skills which you can choose to upgrade. They may be in a tree format, and that might be how they've separated tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. They may simply just be 3 things that you can get all 3 of, and there's not kind of any choice that you have to make. You just pick one, and then you eventually earn enough to get the next, and then you get the next. The specifics of the system is still unclear so far, but it's just really exciting to me that skills are a thing in zombies that are going to be persisting in the menus of the game. So if you get your tier 3 Jug, and you've got it all the way upgraded, and then you get your tier 3 Speed Cola all the way upgraded, and you do that with all your perks, those perks will carry over to the next map, DLC 1, whether we're going to Russia, whether we're going to another remade map like a Buried or a Kino der Toten, whatever it's going to be, those perks will persist, and there'll be new perks, presumably as well, that you can then start upgrading to. That brings us to my final point, and that's that I've seen other stuff already leaked for this game. I've seen little bits and pieces floating around in my Twitter mentions and stuff, because there's just stuff out there. People were ripping stuff from the game files from the beta and the alpha. That was always going to happen. It was to be expected. And there's just little bits and pieces here and there that have come from I don't even know where. That stuff for now is not something I want to touch on in this video. I've already covered quite a lot of ground, and so we're going to leave things here, but I will be keeping my eye on all the major websites and stuff like that, because obviously if like IGN starts posting that there's some kind of new zombies news that hasn't actually been tweeted out by Treyarch yet, for instance, but the IGN have published themselves, then that gives me the green light as a creator to jump on that news, because it's in the public domain. It's no longer something I'm leaking. I'm not responsible for it in any way. It's just news. It's something that is everywhere, and IGN are never going to get struck for stuff, and so I will be sticking to that sort of safe area of leak coverage, I think, as far as I can possibly do. So thanks for watching, guys. If you've enjoyed, then drop a like, and if you've got any other particular topics that you want me to talk about soon for zombies, then let me know. I've got lots of new zombies videos coming on the way, so subscribe. I'll see you soon. Bye for now.